tiny. I mean, you're just up there, but it's just fun to shoot. It's just
Yeah.
goofy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
I need to
fun.
take my kids out shooting again.
It
I told them they could go when they were 8, and I took my daughter out once, and then now my boy just turned 8, and they're both like, "Hey,
what?
I thought we could go shooting now."
Yeah,
And I'm like,
Dad.
"Oh,
The
Look at
one
our backyard.
ah,
Well,
shit."
technically our front yard.
the one thing that's you got that little gorge out there, just walk on down. The one thing that's kind of funny is that
I mean,
with
a bolt action suppressed 22 is pretty quiet.
that cricket rifle, which is fun, is like it's only one round. And so you'll just sit out there and just dink around with it because it's only one more round. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I
Well, and
think it was
I
80
mean, that was
bucks.
the first thing with Dakota. When I first let him, I've got a picture of me basically helping him. I mean, he's like maybe 2 or 3, and he's got these. I mean, for him, it's like these big old
Yeah.
huge green earmuffs on. This little teeny tiny kid, and he's got just this big cheesy grin on his face because all he cares about is like, can I pull the trigger and make loud noises?
Yep.
Mhm.
And nothing's changed, to be honest. I mean, that's still pretty
Oh,
much his perspective on the deal. But man, what a great memory.
I had to sit there and teach Michael about like aiming and shooting because when I won that 9mm, not 9mm, that 22 caliber Beretta M9A1 pistol from like the Super Shoot years back, Michael, when like he'd be like, here's a box of 22, and then you'd be like, that was 300 rounds. Where did that go? And it was just like he just filled the magazine with 15, clack, 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 clack. Magazine out, new magazine,
New
clack,
mag.
clack, 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 clack. And so like he would just smoke through stuff. And I was like, no, like aim. You're gonna do something. You're gonna work on something. But the problem is nowadays it's like 9mm for him because now the guns that he wants to shoot are the same guns that I want to shoot. But anyways, welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Hernandez, joining you from in light of not the bed tent, the blackout curtains, and clean sheets on a clean bed, but a little bit of throat discomfort because I bought an entire pecan pie, and apparently I'm somewhat allergic to whatever the filling is or the crust or what. I think they probably had like a high egg wash or something on the crust, and so my throat's
That's a
going.
weird way of saying you're giving blowies under the underpass.
These guys need to keep hygiene, guys, no matter what age. Hygiene's important.
Is there egg on this penis? Oh my god. I'm allergic to that. You should
I'm
know
allergic
better.
to egg. Goodness gracious.
Damn it. How many times?
Stop sleeping in the Denny's dumpster. The hell are you? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, no one respects me. No one respects me and my needs. Anyways, I took some Benadryl, some cranky and sleepy. If you want to hear the crank Patreon members, if you want to join the Patreon and spend $1 a month, hear me make fun of housewives. It's appropriate. It's
And
good.
talk about his yang.
Yeah, that's it. All that stuff, and a cricket that went missing. It's the parable of the cricket. You can hear that too. Anyways, joining me tonight, he's the Turkish import of a real podcaster. It's Robert Wyatt.
I'm just as good. I swear I am.
And his number one trick in bed is to turn the willing into the unwilling. It's Jared Stepp.
And the living into the unliving.
Just for so you guys go out there and everyone at the top of the show before you listen to this get to work and then head off out to and then never finish the friggin' podcast. Mr. Stepp, he's got shirts and stuff that he's selling, and he's also got a class that he's pushing out there that's filling up. So Jared, tell him about that stuff.
Yeah, we got some shoot faster classes coming up at the beginning of October 5 and 6, actually. The handgun class as of right now has 1 spot left. So if you want to get better at shooting your handgun faster and want to get better at
Hold on.
basically
I gotta sign up for that and then go slower as the class proceeds and go like, why?
Wow. That's October 5th, and then in the afternoon I have a rifle class, and that's just recoil management. So if you want to get better at learning how to basically shoot a rifle correctly, that's all it is. It's 4 hours. It's a rifle recoil management class. We're doing that on the October 5th and the October the 6th. So it's kind of fun for me. It's going to be it's 4 classes over 2 days, so it's going to be busy.
Wow.
But one of the rifle classes is sold out. The handgun class is almost sold out, and then there's one rifle class left. So if you're interested, search Waypoint Training on Practice Score for more information. Also, I have shirts, and I want to sell them. So
I have
buy
merch.
them. Yeah, I mean, everybody likes shirts, and if you like A10 Warthogs, or if you like Warthogs from Halo, these shirts are for you.
From a
Message
popular
me
science
here.
fiction video game. From a popular science fiction video game.
I don't even think Bungie exists anymore. I don't even know if
No,
they
they got
own
bought by
Halo.
Microsoft
It's
at that point, right?
343, which is brought to you by the fine people at Microsoft, who ever since Mr. Bill Gates got a pie thrown in his face, very litigious people. But there's no reason that we can bring this up because whatever image is on
It's
that
totally unrelated
it's
to anything else.
it's unrelated to any Microsoft property.
So yeah, if you're interested in that, message me on Facebook or on Instagram or text me on the Paracast thread, and I'd be happy to send it out to you. They're $25 a shirt, $30 if I'm shipping them out to you. They're good, high quality, next level apparel shirts. They're comfy, and they make you shoot faster. It's a +5 to speed, -1 to accuracy. So it's worth the cost.
And if you wear them with an appropriate matching set of jeans, +5 to charisma. It's true.
Oh,
It's true. That's just science. Anyways,
Yeah, just why is it I always seem to roll a critical fail whenever I wear them? I'll tell you what.
because you're not wearing your doctor glasses, Robert. You got to wear your doctor
Oh.
glasses. That's why.
Admittedly, I
Seeing-
can see better with those glasses.
seeing does help.
Oh.
Robert starts shooting with glasses, grandmaster level. It's just like, oh, what?
What the
I
heck?
couldn't track the dot. You know why? Because I couldn't see it. Nothing.
I was
Anyways,
just used to shooting brown things, and so I'm like, I mean, if it's brown, I'm gonna pull the trigger.
what is I don't know what is with you guys. I have only made fun of women yet, and then here you are doing that, and then we're stealing intellectual property. This is why this show's never going to get off the ground. This is why. Anyways, thanks for all the well wishes from everyone who sent me messages on Instagram and Telegram and all that stuff. Like people like, thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. Anyways, stuff I did this week. I set up the old dominate defense. I don't know if you can see it back there in the corner, but I set up the old not the Mach 1, but like the duty belt one. Just yeah, I set up that thing to actually compete in USPSA. It just makes a little bit more sense with kind of like my body shape and my body size to kind of sit it a little lower, a little bit wider, a little bit more stable. What's the thickness of a USPSA belt? What can that be? Is it 2.5,
I don't know.
2.25?
I don't know that there is a thickness. It just has to be on there, doesn't it? Shit, I don't know, dude.
Yeah, that
I should know, but I actually really
I don't think
know.
I don't think I've heard it because I remember IDPA having the 2-inch model and then like the
Yeah,
duty belt
IDPA
exemption.
had the big gay thing about how
It has to go
had
through
to be
belt
a
loops.
belt loop thing, but
Yeah.
I don't think USPSA necessarily has that. I could be
No.
wrong.
I don't think so.
Well,
I don't,
I know
I
they
don't
have
know
the-
of one.
we
The
couldn't.
holster has to be a certain distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a weird thing. Yeah, so the holster has to be a certain distance away from your body still. The still credit card rule applies. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
All right, I'll have to check that because that might not fit with my current setup. I just have these damn long arms. Okay, I'm tired. I'm tired. Like I'm tired of doing pull-ups that are twice as long as everyone else's, and I'm tired of drawing the pistol that's twice as long as everybody else's.
Listen, but they just made a whole like trilogy of movies for you where the Planet of the Apes and orangutans come out and they get to be the winners there. It's a great movie for you, Tom. You
Yeah.
should watch it.
I know, but then they have short legs and small penises. Have you seen? Because gorillas are jacked, and then you're not intimidated anymore. You know.
I
So
am just not saying shit right now.
stop putting eggs on it. Anyways. So anyways, yeah, I was sitting there messing around with that stuff and getting ready and doing a little bit of dry fire practice. I do need a new damn shot timer. And I'm looking at all the shot timers that are out there and available. They have
What happened to your CED?
the CED just does not take a charge. So like it's still good for dry fire because I can leave it plugged into the wall and it will still run in the repetitive mode, because that's the one thing that like I really like about that CED 7000. So
I got one. You want one?
sure, all right, problem solved, everybody. You see how that works? Just have friends. That's life is so much better when you just have
Yeah,
friends.
just send me a message when you come up. I've got one that's been sitting here for ever.
Good, and Kevin Isaac has a VP9L holster without a light, so that's also fantastic too. I'm going to get a bunch of free stuff. The other thing that's almost free that I was
Wow,
sitting
you
at
gonna
looking
complain
at,
about your life, and then everybody like starts giving you shit.
dude, no kidding. Everybody's like, oh, they all start coming out of the woodwork. Oh, I would love to shoot with you. It's good to see you, brother. Like, yeah. All right, you look great. You look great. You know, losing 40 pounds wasn't enough to get a compliment, but like having life-altering things and then finally bringing it up a year later, all of a sudden people can be like, wow, you look fantastic. Tom's like, I've looked fantastic for 2 years, you son of a bitch. But you don't say that because they're just reaching out to you. Anyways, but the MAC Armament, Military Armament Corporation, this is another SDS brand, a sister brand to TSOS, has now released its own MP5. They call it the Mac 5. And
Oh.
rumor has it is built at MKE or is actually built by MKE. Like it's either a shell company that's using the same MKE parts and stuff like that. But anyway, this thing is
I like
like,
shell companies. I'm just
oh,
gonna
good,
say
good.
they're the best.
You and the Bidens, man. I'd tell you.
Yeah, man. I
You
tell
guys.
you what. Hey, they were onto something.
Okay.
Apparently, Glock had a bunch of like Shell Corporation things too, which was kind of funny. But anyways, so they they're putting out MP5s and they have up on gun.deals I saw it. So they have the full size MP5, of course, pistol configuration, the A1 end cap. And it comes with like the flash hider. It comes with 2 magazines. It doesn't come with the optics mount, but it like comes with everything else that you would get from MKE. They want $999 for these things.
Oh shit! I'm gonna go buy one.
Yeah,
That's not bad.
no,
I could
it's
use
not.
another one.
If it's an MKE produced product or on
Did they have the
MKE
baby
tooling,
version like what you have?
the K, I
The
didn't
teeny
see
tiny
that.
guy?
No, all I saw was the
Hmm.
full size one at the time. But the Ks you can find for pretty cheap. The thing that's expensive with the K models and the PDW models that you find there's because they're always around 1,000, somewhere around there is just SBRing it with the stock and then the
Yeah.
foregrip and stuff like that because they're not going to come with that. But yeah, one of those things is like that ain't too bad. And even if like you have the triggers rough or something like that, like honestly, like those guns, they're pretty easy to maintenance and to get running again. Most of it's just small spring stuff. So even if you spend another $110 on spring stuff from, HK parts or something like that, or a different safety or anything, like it's going to be great. It's going to be
Honest,
fantastic.
yeah, honestly, just shoot it. I mean, shoot it a bunch, and it just seems to work its way in. And I mean, it's like everything. You shoot it a ton, and the trigger just gets a little bit better. It's never going to be like that real nice Geisley AR-15 kind of
Yep.
trigger, but it's not what it is. But you shoot it a bunch, and it gets really good. I mean, I have that. I can't remember that. I bought that aftermarket, the Timney trigger, or whatever, on the MP5, and I'm not. It's fine, but it's not great. I don't know that I
Is
would
it
do it again.
$200 better?
No, I mean, if I'm just being honest with you, no, it's not. It's really not.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's fine, but when I shoot it at a match, I don't sit there and be like, man, these splits are so much better because I've got this trigger. I just don't feel that. I don't
Yep.
have Jared fast splits for sure, but I think the gun shoots pretty good, and I'm
The
happy with it. I love it.
splits, get this to be printed on his t-shirt. Splits are like your driving commute. It's not how long your commute is, it's how quick you can get on the freeway. And a trigger is not so much about pull weight, but it's about travel. Like the minimize of the travel, you could have a 5 pound trigger. That's still harder than a 3 pound trigger with equal travel. But man, if you can really have a short travel, like you could really start getting going on some of those
Well,
things.
here's a funny thing that I saw. So I was taking pictures at the state match, and one of the people I was taking a picture or taking pictures was Nick Brazili. And if you've ever actually watched him shoot, every time he pulls the trigger, I think like his fingernail hits the front of the trigger guard
Yep.
because it is all the way off and back on, and he's splitting fast.
Yep.
I mean, he can absolutely run that thing, and it was just really interesting because it's so visible that he's just like off and on, off and on. but he makes it work, and
Yeah.
he's exceptionally talented. So
if you can make any predictable movement faster and faster, but like if on a mechanical thing on a pistol, like if you can make it short and you can work exclusively in that window, you can
mhm.
make it super, super, super fast.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. I absolutely love that gun. I really like the MP5. It would be cooler if it was full auto like they have at the Armory, but I mean, it's pretty cool for what you can get out of it.
Yeah, and they're pretty neat, and
And it's a
I
vibe.
really, I really want to shoot a USPSA match with the MP5 that's full auto and just run around and go krk, 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 krk. I know you can't, and I know it's quote unquote illegal, but also, fuck them hoes.
yeah.
I
Well,
want to do
all I
that
know
shit.
is, I mean, if you come to my matches, then yeah, totally. Fuck them hoes. If you bring a full auto, we're letting that baby go.
Well, the one thing is too is like it's not like H&K did not make the USPSA trigger, because they did make 2-round burst triggers. They had trigger groups that were 2-round burst, 3-round burst, full auto, get 4 variants, 2 variants, or whatever. They always had those kind of setups, and like they had like the MP510s. They had the FBI had like a semi-auto version, and then they had a semi-auto with a 2-round burst version with no full auto. And so there are 2-round burst trigger groups that were out there, and that would be a blast.
I seem to remember. I think it was like Small Arm Solutions was talking about the M16 when it originally came out with that 3 round burst or whatever, and he said like uh the 3 round burst is actually a really terrible setup because you actually figure like the first three is where the gun is lifting, and then after that, that's when you're getting the gun back into a controlled pattern so that you
Hmm.
could keep firing. But if you're having to go ba 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 ba, and it can
Yep.
never really do what it
Get
needs
into
to.
the groove of it.
Yeah, yeah, and I've never shot a 3 round burst anything, so I don't know. I just take him at his word because he's
I
kind of a smart guy.
I just dislike the 3 round burst models from a armorer standpoint because we actually have a handful of the 3 round bursters, and so
Hmm.
on the AR how it's just the disconnector is just that one little thing with a little Loch Ness monster sticking up,
Yep.
and you put it on the spring. It's pretty straightforward. The 3 round burst model is, instead of a Loch Ness monster, it's like a Hydra, and there's like 3 or 4 of the little disconnectors, and it is
Yep.
absolutely bonkers. If you ever get a chance to look at a 3 round burst lower, pop that back pin and just look at it, because it's a very unique setup and it's very different than anything you'll see. And if you look at it and you're like,
And
what the
yep, it
fuck?
has the freaking
Hmm.
memory on it. So like whatever teeth of those disconnectors was the last one that was engaged, that's what you're getting. So if
Hmm.
you
Oh,
shoot
that's right. I
yeah,
remember
so if
that.
you shoot the 3-round burst and you only discharged 1 round out of that 3-round burst, even if you put it back onto semi-automatic and then put it in there and then fire, I think you can still get like those initial 2 rounds that are off of that connector. Or if you reload it again and you go to shoot another 3-round burst and you fired one before, like this next one will only be 2.
Yeah,
Like
that's interesting.
it has to run its own cycle there before it was there. Yeah.
I'd have
Yep.
to go back and listen to that show he did. It's on YouTube where he talks about it because I don't remember why. Like why was 3 round the number they settled on? Why did they even go there? Because they had full auto, and knowing the army, it's probably because they didn't want to spend money because it's the army.
Well,
Well,
But
if I remember correctly, it had something to do with barrel life. It had to do with ammo management. It had to do with accuracy. It had to do with how many
huh.
rounds does it take to actually take down a human being. And they came up with this magical number. It was all this stuff combined into, well, this should be better, but
yeah, but
Yeah.
like from a prone like fighting like position like prone and 3-round burst, like 3-round burst is actually pretty. Like it's pretty good. Like you can keep like if you're in a very very prepared position and aiming, like those 3 rounds can be pretty tight together. I think Grantham did a video on
oh,
the F16 a while ago, and he was like making like 2 out of the 3 hits at like 200 yards, 300 yards with the thing in
Hmm.
oh
burst
no,
mode.
you can shoot them very accurately. So I have a full auto for work, and you can burst fire that really easily. And I actually had for our shooting team tryouts, one of the drills was you worked a VTAC barricade shooting at a C zone silhouette at 50 yards. And so I did the whole thing on full auto just for funsies. And 2 standing was easy, and then working each one of those positions was a ton of fun. And I did the whole thing, and I didn't miss once. Just grk, grk, grk,
Hmm.
grk, grk, and it's that you could be very accurate with those.
Is that because of the design of the system, or that the 223 is an inherently it doesn't have a really hard recoil, and so it just allows you to stay on target more consistently?
Yeah, there's not a lot of recoil. 223 does not have a ton of recoil. It's just once you have a correctly gassed and set up rifle,
Gotcha.
you can shoot that thing, especially with something where you can press down against it, whether especially on like a barricade. If you can press
Hmm.
down on a barricade, you can do an entire mag dump of 5.56 at 50 yards into a C zone
Yep.
easily.
Yeah.
Well, if you see there's videos online, you kind of find them of guys running 5.56 AKs, full auto 5.56 AKs. What are they? Arsenal like 101s and 104s and stuff like that. And like that's a very properly gas system, and it's heavy, and the way that the bolt is not like pushing back into your shoulder and stuff like that. Like you see guys just put those things on full auto and just stitch little holes with those
Mhm.
things. Like those things are wicked. But yeah, properly gassed. MP5 just heavy, small caliber. You see all those guys like there's just one thing on the History Channel where this old SAS guy's doing it. His name was like Paul something with an S, and you just see him with an MP5 SD5 go P S, and then shoot one shot, one like period. You know, in between both of them, you're just like, holy smokes! It's just like, yeah, I think for monetary reasons and for what would you say, proficiency reasons over a vast group of people, the if people kind of train their way out of what could have been with full auto firearms, and there's not a lot of availability to train with them. But my guess is if they were allowed, we'd be seeing a bunch of crazy stuff that we'd be like, how the heck does they do that? So
Oh,
Well, one of the best things I actually like about full auto guns, and a lot of times you have these conversations where they're like, where people will say, "Why on earth would you need a full auto?" And to be frank, you don't. But what one thing full auto guns can actually do very, very well is they will test your ability to control recoil. Because a lot of times, and I do these recoil control classes with rifles, and you come up on target and you have to shoot quickly. If you're not shooting quickly, it's not getting you the point. You have to come up, aim at a small target, and go bang, 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 bang. And you have to shoot that fast. Bang, 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 bang. If you're not shooting that fast and you go bang, 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 you're not testing your fundamentals, your stance, everything together. You're simply testing, well, yeah, you can wait to see till it's back. It's not hard to do that.
yeah.
But when you do it on full auto and you're like, all right, let's test your shooting stance. We're going to put it on full auto. There's 10 rounds in that thing. You're going to hold that down the entire time. Let's see what your shooting stance is. And it's always funny because people start changing their feet. They start changing their shoulders. They start changing how they're holding the gun. They start changing everything. I'm like, okay, well, why aren't you doing that semi auto? Okay, now let's just shoot one round semi auto from that position. And you're going to see that it does not change. Boom. Wow, that your rifle doesn't move at all.
Yeah.
Let's do the full auto burst. Burk. Wow, the rifle doesn't move at all. If you're doing it correctly and if there's these check boxes you can do, and all of it matters. Your feet matter, your hips matter, your shoulders matter, your firing arm matter, your firing hand matters, your support hand matters. All of this comes into play. And if you have one of those things off, if you're trying to do a perfect thing, it does affect it. And so I like full auto actually as a teaching tool to test and kind of show that, yes, you can do this correctly if you are doing it correctly.
Right. I mean, we do the same thing with pistols for like new shooters. You'll see them all the time. Like at my little match, they'll very stand upright, very very vertical, and they'll fire the gun exact everything you're saying, Jared. They'll stand up. They'll be very first shot, second shot, and it's like, and we'll talk or something like that, and I'll get them back in the tack bay, and I'll just for the fun of it, fire 5 rounds. Just fire it real quick, and you
Right.
can see them exactly what you say. The first time they do it, they start going back on their heels, and then it's the second time you're like, let's try it again, and you see them. They
all leveling out.
change how they stand. They get a lot more aggressive, and it's like, cool, do that more. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. And it's great because you're right. It's so instructive of like this is a very it's a very like physical test to show you how something can actually change everything. It's awesome.
Yep.
Little things can definitely become big things with shooting, but honestly, a lot of it it's funny because I'm sure a lot of the listeners are like, well, yeah, no shit, duh, because it's common knowledge to a lot of us who have actually taken classes or who have gotten professional instruction from some people.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people in this game, they have never gone to a class. They have never gotten actually real instruction besides like the one-on-one random things where some shooter will take them off to the side, be like, bro, turn your mags around. This is why. This is why you want to hold your mags like this. Because the other way is stupid. And they'll get these little tips and tricks like that. And, but that's not nearly the same thing as actually going and getting dedicated information, dedicated class about, hey, this is how you want to set all this up. This is why, this is how, this is why, this is how, and kind of explaining everything. And there's a lot of people who just never get it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of shooting competitively is you're just exposed to more people and more opportunities. And because you're shooting more quickly and you're doing all these other things, it has a way. I mean, the nice thing is a lot of the things that we do become very self-corrective
Right.
or self-correcting. You try and like lean around a barricade and you're sitting up really tall and you're like, oh man, I can't do this. And you start to figure things out. You just have to stick with it long enough. But you can shortcut all of that by going to like somebody who a really good teacher and
Yep.
they'll watch you.
Well,
I mean, like when I everything you're talking about everything you're talking about, Jared, like at the indoor match, I'll do those things. Dude, turn your mags around. This reason but I have 20 people there and like
Yeah,
I don't
you don't
have
have the
time
time. You don't have the
to
time to
take every
fix.
person.
I don't have the
Yeah.
time to unfuck you.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you do the best you can. You give people advice, but you just hope they come back.
he has the time to F you. He doesn't have the time to un-F you. Like
That's on the Patreon side.
but like the one thing too about like it's a little bit different than now. Like you were going into gun culture and then found USPSA, but there's a lot of people who find like organized actual shooting is through USPSA.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they do is they'll train everything as if it's part of USPSA and then not really train a whole lot of things in isolate. Right? Because like going to the match becomes the practice. And so the
Mhm.
stuff that they're doing, like there's lots of people I see that like, are really uh, good at prosecuting a stage, going through, moving through a stage, and all that stuff. But if you sat there and I said, for the love of all things holy in this world, I would like you to aim and hit this A zone in the head at 7 yards. Let's see that happen. Or do it like
Don't make me do it.
keep all the shots within the head box, keep all the shots within the top of the A zone, keep all the shots on the piece of steel at a rapid succession, and they just can't, they're not able to do it.
Hmm.
So
No, that exists.
anything else?
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We got a bunch of questions, and the only way that you can answer the questions is like, why do I look terrible? Why is my performance sucking? It's because you don't have a Dominate Defense belt. Head on over to Dominate Defense or American Operator Gear. Use promo code PARA10. Hold on a second. I'm
Sneeze?
dealing with like an allergy attack and then like a Fanta burp, and it's not coming out.
There's
But what
eggs in
is
the
coming?
Fanta.
There's eggs in the-
There's eggs.
No,
Yeah.
Tommy, no.
Hail
Goodness
Lee Page
gracious.
for the first time.
Anyways, great belts, fantastic equipment. That's the best in the industry. When you go out there and you see everyone wearing them, you're like, what the hell is that fantastic belt with the ratchet? And you realize it's a Dominate Defense belt. Oh, goodness gracious, for the love of God, let me die. You use promo code PARA10, save 10% off. Also, check out Rune Tactical, and you can get yourself a +1 follower and springs to go into your gun and to get yourself a +1 for a wide variety of weapons and magazines. Check them out, and also W74 guide rods for your springs, but most importantly, your weight gaining needs. He's got the protein shakes for your pistol, the tungsten batteries, the tungsten guide rods, everything that you need to beef that thing up. Because
Make it thick.
make it thick. Don't have no recoil. Get some cushion for the shooting pushing. W74. That's the official promo. Anyways, PRA10, 10% off. Telegram. It's an app. If you're like, well, I don't want to get some app and then be bothered on a wall. There's no wall, bitches. You literally only talk to the people that you like get in contact with. So if you start up and there's no one on there, it's gonna stay there. Just search
Yeah.
the Paracast chat. It's gonna pop up. Come in and chat with us. It'll be fun. Robert.
I got a laundry list of questions from Dred Scott, but we'll pound through them. Does Paracast have or thought about having a regular Telegram chat for listeners to be able to talk to each other? We do actually have one, and it actually links through it does link through the Paracast. So you could totally come there. You have to have really thick skin because Sean's a big meanie. Love you, Sean. Let's see what else. Was
No
going to ask if
eggs. No eggs.
no
Don't
eggs.
cover yourself in eggs.
I was going to ask if I need to be a USPSA member to go to a level 2, as I saw there was an open spot on Robert's squad for Barry's Rod Rock Rumble. And how dumb would it be to go to a level 2 as my first USPSA match? Saw in the rules there needs to be a member, but still curious how dumb would that be? I don't think that's dumb at all.
I think it's dumb.
It's dumb if you care about your performance. As long as you have a chaperone that literally will walk you through and be like, don't do this, don't do that. Like, if you're going to sit there, like, you can meet a bunch of people, you can see the high level of the sport, and then you can get a lot of fun out of that time.
Dude, come be on my squad. We'll have a great time. And I can promise you, if you don't point the gun at me, I'm not DQing you for shit.
Robert might not DQ you, but so here I had a little bit of a different experience than Tom and Robert because when I first came into the sport, I went to a couple of the state level matches with USPSA, and I had very negative experiences with
you
multiple
pointed the gun
ROs.
at your hand.
No, that was at an IDPA state match, and that was fine actually. They were cool. I didn't have any issues with that. That was the only time I've ever DQ'd. But at other USPSA state matches, I've had issues where like the ROs are just seem like they're trying to fuck you, or the ROs seem like they're trying to DQ you. You have like guys just prowling through the parking lot to see if someone's gunning up in their car, and you have guys just it's like they're trying to do this gotcha thing, and it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth where I didn't like it. I think locals are a lot more fun. The stress level is a lot less, and everyone's a little bit more goofy, and everyone's willing to just joke around a little bit more. Where if you go to a big state match, a lot of the squads are not fun squads. A lot of the squads are dudes who are just like, oh, serious, 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 serious. I paid a lot of money to be here. I've been training for this event. If I do badly in this event, my entire life and my Instagram's going to fall apart.
The funny thing is, like, everybody who's listening to this now immediately thought of that one squad.
Yeah.
And it's like very clear in their head.
We all know of squads and we all know of guys where it's not fun to shoot on that squad anymore because, oh, if Bleepity Blop has a bad stage, now everybody thinks he's going to go off himself in the porta potty, and I don't want to testify about that. So it's just like, I don't know. Level 2s could be fun, but it really is dependent on who you're with. So if you're there with Robert, he's going to chaperone you through, then maybe it'll be all right. But at the same time, that's a lot of money for a first.
It's definitely a you go there for the person that you're going to be with, because when somebody's chaperoning you through a level 2, it's not you have to realize that they have to be very proactive with you.
Yeah.
They have to tell you things not to do before you do them. And you may know not to do. It's like, you're not going to pull your gun out here. We're going to go over into the safety area. Hey, let's take off all your magazines before we go. Like, it's literally going to be babysitting you. And if they have the energy to do it because they're also worried about their match, then that's fine. But like, you're going to get like the level 2 holds all the USPSA kind of experience, because there's going to be somewhat levels of a DQ trap. There's going to be harder, more elaborate stages that require much more stage planning and execution. There is going to be much more regimented judgment from ROs, and like, it's going to be a longer day.
But you're going to, with Barry's Red Rock in particular, you're going to have a level of experience that would take you, let me see, 3 months or 3 matches to get at a local level, because there's 19 stages at Red Rock. And so you get all of that in one big exposure. So that's actually pretty cool. You're absolutely right. I mean, a level 2 match is a different experience. It's a higher level thing, and there's an expectation for it. But if you're safe with a gun, And I mean, really, that's the big thing, right? If you can be safe with a gun, and you know you're safe with a gun, uh, it's a lot of money to just to show up to shoot. But um, man, I don't know, I'd do it. I mean, if it'd be fun.
Right?
Uh, what's the point? Let's see. So moving on. What's the point of power factor? I get that it is to try and be on a level playing field, but if everyone goes over somewhere between 5 and 15, but if everybody goes over somewhere between 5 to 15 power factor to be safe, then aren't people really on a level playing field anyway?
Well, the one thing is like you have to have a power factor. Well, everyone understands you have to have a floor. You have to have a floor that makes sure that everyone is competing with what would be considered regular 9mm ammunition or something that wouldn't be a game loader or something like that. But the reason that there's like the power factor too is because there definitely is a difference between shooting a 135 grain power factor 9mm load, which is still a pretty decently powered load, and shooting a 180 power factor major load. And so I know that we all kind of think about it, a lot of us think about it as just shooting 9mm, but there's this whole other aspect of the sport, even though that sport is older, which was the major power factor. And then what would qualify you to receive those extra points for shooting that was that power factor floor? Because if not, like why would you waste the components, deal with more recoil, if you could get the same points by just saying like, oh, we're all shooting 9mm? Because even now, like even between the three of us, the level of 9mm which we have loaded, and some of us have competed with, like Robert almost making a 150 power factor bullet and just keep shooting that, and then mine being like 132 or whatever like that, and then Jared getting factory or shooting like duty ammunition here and there. Like there's a wide array of it. So
Yeah. No, I mean, power factor exists. It's a part of USPSA, the DVC thing, that weirded Latin. I can never say it, but I mean, the whole point of power factor is that you're trying to subcategorize different elements of the game.
yep. And there's a lot of cartridge development that we now see has kind of gone away, like stuff that was in like the 10mm, the 40 caliber, the 38 super. That was like all that cartridge development and powder development was to get cartridges that could make major power factor, but you could squeeze more of them into a magazine. And so, literally, because of power factor, we got a huge boon of these kind of calibers that showed up there. Because guys, the competition end, they like before the day they were looking for wildcat shit that they could meet all the criteria and get more bullets in the gun and therefore be more competitive.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to start a real war, just casually tell people that we should get rid of major power factor, and then stand back.
I want us to go to major scoring for everything and get rid of major power factor. I would love that.
So when everybody's special, nobody's special.
No, I just want to spaz out.
Yeah, okay.
So
That
okay,
that
so
w- that certainly would play to your strength, wouldn't it? That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
everyone wants less aiming. It's like Charlie, 8 points,
yeah.
baby. It was 6. I gotta raise. It's
I
8 points.
I'd have to talk to Zach and Taylor, because I have it in my head that they told me that um that power factor being high for an open gun actually makes the gun work better.
Yep.
Like it
Yeah.
needs that kind of energy to make that gun settle in the way that it just gives you those
Right.
just ridiculously flat shooting guns.
Well, because you need the more gas. The more gas you have activates the compensators more. And so the more gas is more compensating going on. And so it's actually this kind of double-edged sword where, well, more gas means more explosion, which means more recoil, but also more gas means more effective compensator, so less recoil.
Yep. Well, it's
Yeah,
just
it
like
doesn't
at
it doesn't
F1.
make sense, because when you think about it, like, why does it work so much better on the high end in the major category, but guns that are built, that like 9mm minor open guns, don't have that same level
They
of?
do.
Do they?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm not.
Everybody will talk about it and be like, nine minor open doesn't even do anything. You're like, no, there's a difference. It's not as significant because it's not as um the initial recoil. If the initial recoil is, let's say, 100 for a 38 super comp, that comp also brings it down 100, so it's at 0. But for a 9 minor gun, maybe the initial recoil is only at 50, and so it only compensates maybe 40. We'll say, I'm just totally making up numbers right
Sure,
now.
sure.
But so it might bring it down. Instead of 0, it might still be at like 10, but that's still a lot better than 50, like a normal limited optics gun. And
Right.
so I've shot minor open, and there is an advantage. Like, it does help. It's not as much because the initial recoil isn't as much, but you can spaz out and go crazy fast in minor open, and it's a lot of fun.
No,
I put those popple holes. Sorry, Tommy. Real quick. I put those popple holes. No, not popple holes. What do you call it? Drilling the holes in the barrel.
Ported barrel.
Ported. I did that to the Beretta, and I absolutely can tell.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you really can actually see. Oh, this gun's not. I mean, because the Beretta always had this. It was this weird wavy kind of a recoil arc. You'd shoot it, and it would kind of like come up, and it would just like settle right back down.
Yep,
Really
steep,
nice,
soft,
very
steep.
nice, very consistent. But with the ported barrel in there, it really doesn't. I mean, it's very flat. It's kind of crazy.
Well, it's an energy driven system. It's like F1 cars. Like an F1 car, unless you're going the speed that you need to activate a lot of the aerodynamics on that gun on that system, then they handle worse. So instead of approaching a corner at 70 or 80 miles an hour, if you approach it at 50 or 40, you are not going to receive as much downforce on the system that is possible to actually activate it. And it's the same thing with a comp. A comp is an energy driven system. If you give it the appropriate amount of energy, you're going to get maximum compensation out of it, which will override any of the extra recoil that you're putting out of it. But like all of us in the other divisions, we just got to like hang passive systems off of it, which are like lights and other weights. Like that's
Tungsten.
like literally
W74 guide rods,
if we
sold
kept
only by the finest.
if we kept the weight limits in carry optics and all that stuff like that, and then just allowed compensators, there'd be a lot more. What would you say progress made on eliminating recoil right now? Because basically, what with the unlimited, it seems like almost an unlimited weight kind of allowance that we've had. We've just gone to like Stone Age technologies, like still effective, like highly, super effective, weighting up the gun, as I say with my brass base pad. But like it's still, as far as a moving the industry forward, it's a pretty decent hindrance.
Well, the thing is, I mean, like we talk about the weight inside the gun, but if they didn't put it to 59, then you would have seen Tanfolio and CZ coming out with heavier and heavier and heavier guns. I mean, and you did see that the SPO1 was purpose built for competition, and it had the full length dust cover on there. And the stock twos came out, and they were heavier guns. The Shadow twos were heavier guns, and so they're all going to start moving the needle. What we've seen with like putting the weight up there is you've seen a lot more people actually building these heavier guns, and so now you have the Brower, was it Brower Custom, has the full steel
320,
chassis
yep.
to the 320s, and people were like, I mean, we're actually seeing people start to move back towards this idea of a heavier weighted gun.
SIG just came out with a steel frame.
Yeah. We're just moving to we're moving into that direction because that's what the allowance is. But like to sit there and say like a heavier handgun is like beneficial to everybody, and it's just like no, like if if you had if a Walther PDP, which was like a 24-25 ounce gun that had a ported barrel or comped barrel system, that was like, oh wow, it's like a two-chambered comp and it has different side supports and it makes the difference and really limits the recoil. Like that is an advancement in handgun technology. People coming up with like, oh, I'm just going to mill a block of steel that's super expensive and hang it off. And the only reason that Tanfo and CZ were allowed to do that because the weight limit wasn't a set weight limit that kept everybody under. It was a +2. You, as long as whatever the factory sends you, as long as it's not 2 ounces heavier than that thing, then you could do it. And so they went like,
sure,
all right, I'll give you a 44-ounce handgun. You got it. And so
right, but that's sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It's just I for a lot of reasons, for at least advancing the sport, and a little bit too, like IDPA's like limited optics or their carry optics or whatever, their carry optics division. Um, like when they allowed comps in there, like that's actually generating progress.
This is true, but at the same time, and I agree with you, but to the comps and the ported barrels thing, they're not a perfect system either.
Nope.
They have their own drawbacks from a concealed carry standpoint. One of the neatest guns that micro guns that I got to shoot was when Jared let me shoot his 365. It's the comp version of that thing.
The X
The X
macro.
macro.
Yeah, it's a great little gun because I hate that gun. I'm not the macro, but I hate the 365. I think it's a shitty gun.
Right.
It's a very recoiling son of a bitch, but the macro, um, the gun, it just stayed there. It worked really, really efficiently. And I'm like, okay, this is really a good system. And Sig put out a really neat idea. How does this work in the dark? Like when you have the flash and everything like that's come through, does that become an issue that you're going to see in CCW? Maybe it does, maybe it does. I don't shoot in the dark, so I really don't know. But it was just stuff that kind of made
Yep.
me wonder.
Yep. No, there's yeah. Every
It's fine in the dark.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I remember the old Glock advertisements when they made like the second and third generation, like the C variants, like the 17C and the 19C, and they had the ports on the top of the barrel, and it created a V, and they're like, "You aim in the V. It's a benefit." And people are like, "That makes sense. I should
That's some
get one
big
of these
brain
things."
thinking.
Yeah, that's big brain thinking, and that's why one of the hardest things to find nowadays is those old like third generation 19Cs, and like it's the benefit to Glock. Like they came out with that single stack 45 Glock 45, was it the Glock 36 back in the day? And then like 10 years later, Springfield made all these little single stack small carry guns, and we still get a bunch of them today. But like if they brought out a fifth generation Glock 19 or Glock 47 C comped, like that thing would just take the world by storm. A bunch of police departments would approve it, like it would be the new hotness. It's literally all they have to do.
I don't have an open gun, but I've got my. I mean, by USPSA standards, it would become open, but I can see the appeal to them.
Yep.
I really can. I mean, like even the minor. I've shot like the comped minor guns, the 2011s, the staccatos, the XCs or whatever, and they're fun. They're absolutely fun. I mean, we don't. I mean, 9 millimeter is not a heavy or hard hitting round or anything like that, so it's not like you need it. But there's a big difference between need and oh my gosh, this is really just effing fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I
It
kind of
is
like
fun.
the oh my gosh, this is really effing fun. That's just it's a cool place to be. I mean, the game mechanic is going to do the game mechanic, and I don't want to take anything from that. But sometimes it is just really fun to take a gun out that like that macro gun, and you shoot it, and you're like, this is actually a viable platform. This is really cool, and that's kind of awesome. Let's see. Moving on. Speaking for power factor, I have no chrono. I run 147s between 2.7 and 3.1 grains of tight group or 3.2 grains of Winchester 231. Will that be enough for minor, or do my loads need to be hotter? Well, without a chrono, it's hard to really know, and without knowing
3.1
the kind of
grains of tight group
bullets.
on a 147. I was loading with like 3.6.
Well, you're loading way hot. Uh, if you're shooting a jacketed bullet 3.3 grains of tight group was always kind of the universally agreed number that seemed to work out of a Glock 17. If you're shooting coated bullets, 3.1 was roughly equivalent to that 3.3. At the end of the day, whatever you do, find somebody who's got one of those cool Garmin chronos and go test it. The number you're looking for is 900 feet per second minimum. Don't go underneath that. If you go underneath it, a 147 doesn't stabilize correctly. That's my advice.
I always
It's-
had the general tight group advice that zero point 0.5 for every bullet weight that you went down. So if you were like a 115, you'd be like 4.5. If you're at 124, 4 grains would be fine. And then if you were a 147, like 3.5 would do it. And I always do like 4.6 or 4.2 or whatever like that, depending on the caliber, just to get it up. Just for like my 115 grade loan with 4.6 grains of tight group, like that came out to like a 133 power factor.
that's a
So
great place
yeah,
for that bullet. The 115s, this is this is seriously like, like low development according to Robert. I like to keep a 115 at just right at or just under 1150 because that's 1150 is right about where you start playing the supersonic game.
Yep.
And so I don't want the gun. I mean, if the bullets, I mean, and we're not shooting that far, so it's probably not going transonic. But I kind of have it in my head. This is literally like bro science at this point. I don't want that bullet going that fast. But that still puts you at 133, 130 somewhere in that power factor, and so you're just fine.
Always don't make the mistake that I did. Like, don't have 30 guns and no chrono. Get a chrono
Yes.
as soon as you can.
Yeah. The second thing you should buy,
Or have a friend with a chrono.
that works too. Andy Erickson has a really great question. Pistol development stopped in 1995. What would you then be shooting in USPSA? He says, I'd probably have a Smith & Wesson 5906 because it splits like a gymnast.
Beretta 92.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
Beretta 92, USP 6R226, Glock 17. CZ75.
The very first gun I ever bought was a 1911, and so I would be just because that's what it was. I have to say I probably would have started with a 1911, but when you say Beretta, that's a darn good one.
Yeah,
I like the Beretta.
Essentially, like in the early 90s, by 1995, you're dealing with like a Beretta Brigadier. You can still change the front and back straps. It's a 9mm handgun that does everything it's supposed to be. The USP, the 6226, like basically those guns now are very similar to the versions we have today. So like 1996 is just like, dude, that's like half the collection. 95, 96.
This is probably a really dumb question, but when did 2011s? When was that created? When did they really take off?
The frames, the STI frames or whatever the frames they used to do, and then the Parent Ordnance non-adjustable frames, like those are like in the late 80s, early 90s. By 95, you had double stack 1911s for sure.
Well, I mean, if pistol development stopped in 95, then I mean, assuming that we stuck with the divisions that we had, it basically limited and open. But assuming that the divisions still existed, I think I'd go with a Beretta. I'd put a dot on the Beretta. Yeah, stack would be fun.
1911 or a Kimber 1911 because you still could get the Clackamas.
They were actually good then.
The Kimbers were actually pretty decent then.
Yep. Yeah, there's not much there. I mean, if you're a DWX or Staccato man or whatever like that, like then yeah, like you're whatever. And like we would all miss the M&P, but there's not. You could still walk into a gun store nowadays and be like back then and be like, I want this, that, and like you'd be fine. You'd be perfectly fine.
Why do we not say Glock? Because Glock was around then, right?
Yeah, I'd take a Gen 3 Glock.
Was it Gen 3 at that point?
Well, what was Gen 3? Gen 3 was 1998, so it'd be a Gen 2.
Okay. Still, that's a very good gun.
Yep. Nope.
Get out of here with your plastic fantastic.
Your Tupperware
Give me an
gun.
all-steel man's gun and a man's bullet. It's 1995. We're men still.
I don't need no nickel-plated sissy pistol.
Fuck it.
Go back to 1960s. That makes it harder. Then everyone's carrying a high power 1911.
From Ron Davison, how much mag spring is too much mag spring? I had some failures to feed at Utah State, and I'm running a DWX, which takes P10 mags and Henning base pads. I'm currently running MBX followers with springs. You should have been running Rune. I temporarily fixed the issue by stretching my mag springs out, but they are compressing with each stage, and I need to get a more permanent solution. I have seen people do this. Why do people stretch out their mag springs? Are they just trying to like make them last longer?
Like well, obviously,
why not just buy new mag springs?
We don't have enough magazine tension. That's why we have to stretch them out.
Well, why don't you just buy another set of mag springs?
Correct. Or like maybe you got a bad set of mag springs that are taking a set that's way too early and they do not have enough tension on them, and so they're not rebounding, and so you're stretching them out.
Yeah.
I talked to Ron about this at the match.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was just having issues where his mag springs apparently had prematurely worn down or whatever the case was. That's why he was just stretching them out at the match as a temporary fix because something was buggered up with them. So he was just trying to counter that at the match. I
Gotcha.
imagine since then, or he's looking to purchase some new ones. I actually always get the um, extra charged mag springs. Like if
Hmm.
Atlas has like the plus 10% duty mag springs, I always get those. I much prefer reliability over magazine capacity. Again, I talked to Ron about this at the match, but most of the time my backup mags only have 20, 22 rounds in them. And I have specific mags that are marked that those mags have a duty follower and a quote unquote duty extra power spring in it.
Really?
So they are more reliable. And those springs and those mags, I know I can drop. I don't have to worry about them. Those are my reliable mags. So I have those two. And then I have one mag that's black, nitrided. And that's my quote unquote competition mag where I can load that one up to 24 if I need to on a stage, but 99% of the time you really don't need 24 rounds ever on a stage.
Right.
And so that's the one mag that if I shoot it and if I do stuff with it, I'll clean it out, I'll brush it off. But the other two duty rated quote unquote mags, those I never clean until like, once a month maybe, and I never have any issues with them. So I personally, most of the time we see issues with firearms at the range, especially in handguns, it is not the gun, it is the mag. So I would prefer to nip all of those issues in the bud and have a extra power mag spring and a more reliable follower that won't flip, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
Because you don't need 24, 25 rounds in every single mag. Have it as a option, have it as a capability, but 95, 99% of the time, you're never
Right.
going to reload. You're never going to do reloads at 24 rounds. Typically, you're
Right.
going to be reloading in the 16 to 20 round zone. And so that's how I
See,
just plan it out.
and I mean, like all of my mags are the same. I don't have a starting mag or anything like that, but I mean, I use the rune springs and followers, which is fine. Um, but I'm kind of like you. I never, so I will put 24 in there at the beginning so that they can that they can take the set that they need to take. But I usually, even on my starter mags, I hardly ever put cap them all the way off. They usually are starting with like 23,
Well, and a
and
lot of
I
times
just
if you
run
have
that
the
way.
24, it's a harder reload because it's
Yeah.
harder to actually, if the slide forward I've had it happen before where you put it in and it doesn't set, it doesn't
Yeah.
seat. And so a lot of times guys will have those 24 rounds and then they'll pop off one or two mags just to make the reload easier.
Hmm.
But it's like, well, why don't I just do that on all stages?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and I do too. Whatever my reload, my reload is always going to come from number one, and my I have three mags on my belt, and so my number one is always the reload. But if we ever unload a start, then it would be number two. But both number one and number two, they're always downloaded to have. It's usually 20. It's 23 or 22. More often not 22 because what you're saying is correct. I just don't. I don't need when the stage is at the tail end of it. I don't need 22 rounds unless something just really bad
if
happened.
it's
But
if it's going to be a 20, like if it's a 22 round course of fire and it's very much a short kind of course without like good spot to sit there and reload or something to take an option that would make it smoother than reloading the gun, then 24 rounds is great because you get those two makeup shots or three makeup shots or whatever, somewhere around 20 rounds.
yeah, I would rather have the 24 and not use them than not have them and wish I did at the end of the day.
Yeah, because even if
I
yeah, you're still, even if you make a reload
Right.
at 23 rounds, you're still plus one up in the gun, and you're not doing it from a slide lock, so it makes sense even there. But
Yeah.
like magazine springs are cheap, and magazine springs are under constant tension. That's the one, like when you have the loaded magazine, like the purpose of a magazine in the magazine spring, like here's a carry 20 round HK 20 mag that's constantly loaded. It is constantly under tension and set. If I walked around and stored my guns with the slide back all the way, I would be constantly putting that spring under like a tension that it would need to rebound from. And they're cheap. Like Wolf Springs makes basically any spring that you could have, and the CZ factory can have a whole lot. But if I'm getting a lot of springs that seem to be really taking a set, and so far that they can't even reach the put proper tension on the follower, like that has to go away. Like your magazine springs are cheap and they seriously hurt a match. Like Kevin learned that lesson. Everybody eventually learns that lesson. And there's plus power strings, and there's also a bunch of springs that are extendedly long, and then you can cut them down and then compress them into a form that you would like. So there's a billion things you can do with magazine springs.
Yeah. Oh, and for the 2011s I run, it's typically if you take the base pad off, you want the spring to extend out of the base, out of the actual shell of the mag by about 2 or 3 inches, I would say.
Hmm.
Because there are sometimes like I've taken out some of those MBX mags, and you pop off the base pad and you pull the base pad off, and the spring like comes out like an inch out of the actual magazine, and it's like I don't think that's enough tension, and those ones
Yeah.
get replaced. So typically you want them 2 or 3 inches. If you get some of the extra power ones, they're going to be more along on that 3 inch side, and you're like, okay, yeah, this guy, he's fine.
And if you can find
Yeah.
flat wire springs for some of your magazines, so like if you're gonna have like your most reliable magazine, like look to see if a company makes a flat wire spring for yours.
And just make a point of changing them often. I
Yep.
mean, I think if you get in Charlie Perez's book, I want to say he changed them every 6 months. I think it might be faster than that, but he changes them out on the regular. And I mean, a spring in any aspect of the gun or the magazine, a spring is a replaceable part. Plan on replacing it. That's how I look at it.
Why the base plates come off?
Yeah. From Rob Moreno, anyone have any plans to change divisions and mix things up? I totally would shoot limited 10 optics if it becomes a thing. Did you guys see that? There was an equipment survey that came out where they basically asking should L10 and Revo go to optic only divisions? Or no, sorry, allow optic, excuse me.
Optic capable.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way of saying it. I saw it.
I would not participate it. I would not participate in it. What do I think? I don't know. I kind of like Revo as is.
Well,
The people who are shooting
Tommy,
it seem they
that
really like it.
echelon, that echelon that Springfield came out, you could put an optic on it, and then you could shoot L10.
I don't want to shoot
Oh,
L10. I don't want to shoot L10. Oh, like
But it makes it an
L10 would be
interesting
fun
division. It actually
because it'd be
makes it an
major.
interesting idea, right?
yeah, it
It'd
would
be
be
10 rounds. You'd have
Yeah.
major power factor.
well even in well that's the part like even in what would you say magazine restricted states it would be like here's a division and it would also open up a bunch of guns for them so like lim 10 I could see having it in there.
I could make an argument that Lim 10 optic has a more distinctive and viable place than limited optics,
I agree
where
with
it's
that.
basically just kind of just a
Yep.
bleh, you're in carry optics, no, you're limited optics. But I think
Yep.
you could actually have a little bit of fun just with the game mechanic of an L10. But at the end of the day, I mean, Revolver to me, I seriously would basically go talk to the Revolver people and say, I will default to your judgment because this is what you guys do, and I don't want to shit on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. And Alex Went wants to know if we have a Bear Defense handgun.
Well, apparently it's not 45 ACP out of a Taurus 1911 because that shit didn't work.
Well, neither did the dude's 10 millimeter, but I
Yeah.
think he only got a shot or two off. I'd do 10 millimeter. I have my Glock conversion barrel.
Yeah.
So the 41 with the 10 millimeter. I mean, talk to Andy. Andy's
10
like one of the huntingest guys I know, and he said he wants to do a hunt with a 10 millimeter.
10
So
millimeter with a good hard cast lead from Underwood or Double Tap or there's a ton of companies that make that. That should do it.
Yeah.
But honestly, the
Buffalo
correct answer
hard-
is it's a shotgun. It's a 12 gauge slug. That's the correct answer.
yeah,
There's you want penetration, so like a buffalo bore super hard cast 10 mil, like not loaded to 40 caliber Smith and Wesson, but like an actual super hot 10 millimeter. You
Right.
could probably do something, but there is a reason why the word magnum comes after some cartridges because it basically means it's going to mess things up. Like a Model 29 with a 6-inch barrel and 45 Magnum, that's like, oh shit, it's coming after me. This would possibly stop it. The real answers are two-handed guns. Like freaking, like you see some of those bearers charge guys in the, like you watch like Meat Eater or something like that, and they fire off some 300 Win Mags, like that shit still, like it could do a lot. It could drop him in one shot. You could be a little bit errant, but like the one thing in that story, it's like, um, trying to fight them off with 45 ACP, like that did not seem to go super well
I
for
think
them.
you will eventually kill the bear
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Well, yeah,
They may kill you before,
right.
but you'll probably kill them.
You poked enough holes in the bag that eventually the bag will
Deflate.
deflate and all the water will be gone.
Right.
But not before your bag is just straight up ass fucked.
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I mean, like, could you
Like
do
Leonardo
those?
DiCaprio
Oh,
fighting a
could
bear.
could you do like? Because if you use a shotgun, um, what are those super short ones like the Mossberg Shockwave or something like that?
Yeah,
The Serbu, the
I
Serbu
look.
shorties.
I know nothing about this, so I'm like
yeah.
completely in ignorance territory here, right? I mean, is that I don't even know if that's even viable. I mean, but if you put slugs into that thing,
Yeah, as long
I
as you
mean,
can aim
that's
it correctly.
coming out with authority.
Yep. That's coming out,
Well, I
just
think
not as
it,
handy.
it it comes down to what we've always talked about. It's about shot placement and
Yeah,
then penetration. And so if you can put the correct round in the correct place, it will kill whatever you're trying to kill.
right.
And so the question you have to ask yourself is, well, what am I trying to kill? And then how much penetration do I need?
Mm-hmm.
And the
So
answer is obvious, and we've been talking about this for months. It's a 50 Action Express. It's the only way to
Deagles.
be
Yes.
and you're gonna have to buy the conversion kit to turn that barrel into a 10-inch barrel.
Mm.
That will do it.
Last question. What is your nutrition hydration regimen for a match? Day before, during, and day after? This actually is funny because this actually came on the heels. Was it last weekend? There was a guy in California who passed away on the range. Sounded like he had an aneurysm or something like that, but it was a really hot day, and so it kind of makes you wonder, what are you doing to stay healthy?
Well, you definitely have to hydrate the day before because realistically, that's drinking water the day of is just keeping you alive. It's not actually hydrating you. And so if you're wanting to prepare for any physical activity or anything, it's hydration comes the day before on. So drink a lot of water, drink some electrolytes, whatever, however you want to take it, whether it's liquid IV, uh, Brondo, or Powerade or Gatorade, however you want to do it. Get electrolytes and water in the day before, get carbs in the day before, the morning of, carbs and protein to get you through the day. Um, I typically will have a breakfast burrito on most match days. If I'm going to be out on the range all day, I'll stop by Maverick, have a breakfast burrito. I'll have half an energy drink, and then I'll drink a shit ton of water and a shit ton of liquid IV. And then later in the day, I'll finish the breakfast burrito, or I'll have an Uncrustable, finish the energy drink because you don't want too much caffeine. But the big thing is just lots of water, lots of water.
I like Charlie Perez. He so I if I'm not careful, I'll forget to do all of that because I just will. And so I read Charlie's book, and he said basically when he shows up to a stage, he drinks a bottle of water, and then when he basically, he's kind of drinking throughout that. And he said it has the downside of you're basically having to go to the bathroom a lot, but having to go to the bathroom a lot means that there's water in your system.
Correct.
Yep.
And so that I kind of like I kind of took that, and I use that a lot. And so I drink a ton, and I always mix it. I do like a liquid IV and then water, so that I'm replacing that, because I've actually had it where I drink water, drink water, and you get to the end, you're like, I don't feel so good. It's because you're sweating all that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and there's no shortage of light lunch boxes that keep your food cold, like keep them dry and cold for an infinite amount of period of time. Like you got stuff now that you can throw ice in, and then it'll still be ice in a week. So like a lot of bunch of like small things that I would enjoy eating, having throughout the day. Like little wraps of like chicken and little wraps of like salami and lettuce or stuff like that. Little tomato sandwiches, stuff like that. Like the small approach is a lot bigger than the big approach because we've all had the big lunch and felt like trash afterwards. And it's just like the small drinking is like that small, high fat kind of snack, a little bit of carbs, a lot of fat, not something that's going to really weigh you down. But having those light snacks throughout the day is really helps. And the ultimate, only get sodas from Mexico. And if you get sodas only from Mexico, they do not crash you out like a bunch of corn syrup stuff. So when I need
That
a
is
little
the
hit,
best bathtub soda you could ever get.
oh my gosh, like it's what's great about that stuff, like the Mexicolas and the Mexican Fantas and the Warritos and all that jazz. It's like you get some hydration, you get a little bit of sugar, you get that instant pop, and then you don't get that ugh, my blood is syrup kind of feeling too out of them. So
I need to take a nap.
yeah, no, and a nice cold Warritos, man, there's almost nothing like it. So it's good stuff for
Uh,
you.
yeah, Kevin Isaac, he started. I don't know if he's been doing this for a long time, but I've noticed he does. He drinks these frick, what do you call it? These little applesauce packet things
Oh yeah.
that you can buy from the store. That seems like a good idea. I mean,
No,
a
honestly,
little bit of sugars. It's easy to digest. That's got to be
a lot
legit.
of what you can get for your kids for their lunch, they're great for you. The little applesauce packets, the Uncrustables, the oh Go-Gurts,
Oh
all
yeah,
that stuff would be great. Have an apple, have a banana, any of those things do a great job. And
Yeah.
I steal a lot of candy from my kids and snacks and stuff for my kids, and I just throw it in the cooler and I bring it in. And Uncrustables are probably the easiest thing to do for lunch and for prolonged snacks at the range because they're
and
frozen when you get them. You throw
yeah,
them in the cooler, they're unfrozen by the middle of the day, good to
and it
go.
has a plastic wrapper, so you're not touching it or nothing crazy like that, which
Right.
kind of is a thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I like those.
Yep.
There you go.
Have a nice. There you go. Whatever's for breakfast, make it eggs and steak. That's it. It's not going to sit there and crush it. You're
I
going to get a
like
lot
that
of fat.
raspberry fritter from Maverick. That's
Yeah,
pretty tasty.
yeah.
You
You can get
take that in a Rockstar.
you get a
That is
lot of
everything you need.
you get a lot of dense nutrition in something like steak and eggs in the morning. And the also thing is it's not going to weigh you down like having a big old bowl of carbs or something like donuts or whatever. Like it's not going to make you feel sluggish. You eat like
I actually feel better having carbs in the morning before I shoot a match than I do having like big heavy proteiny things. I don't know why.
well
I
that's
always have.
instead of having like 4 eggs or something like that, you have like 2 eggs and then you have like 8 ounces of steak. Like that's going to set you up largely. I'm not talking about having the Texas Roadhouse meal at the beginning, but like you just have
We call that the Kenny Terry special.
yes, energy density. Yeah, Kenny can do it. Kenny needs that energy for that grunting. Anyways, thanks for downloading, listening, and subscribing. Thanks for all that you guys do. We would like to remind you to head on over to the Patreon, give it $1 a month, join the Telegram chat, do all that stuff. Sign up for Jared's class, and what else do we do? Don't put eggs on it. And for Robert Wyatt and Jared Stepp, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and soul as we depart into the open waters of the Sea of Life on a little tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Good night, everybody.
Doot doot.